Welcome to the Early Rising Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. And Chair Torres.
Welcome to those of us joining us here in Carson City and those of us joining us in a packed room in Las Vegas this early morning, and anyone watching over the internet. Just a couple housekeeping items. Just as a reminder, please remember to silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. For those joining us online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. When testifying, turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, spell your name and your affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Handouts should have already been provided to the committee managers. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and any other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of each meeting. Each person will be given 2 minutes to testify in public comment. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. We will be taking the bills in order today. So our first bill, we're going to go ahead and start with AB 252, which revises provisions relating to governmental administration. And by Assemblyman Cohen, when you're ready. And I understand that there might be somebody that's joining us via the phone, so I don't know if, are they going to be co-presenting?
There's someone going to be over Zoom.
Okay, one moment. We're just going to make sure that individual is available. What's their name? Joel Snyder. Okay, Joel Snyder. So we're just going to go ahead and check. So 1 minute recess. Just so the members of the public know, we're just having some technical issues, making sure that that member is there. And Assemblyman Cohen, oh, I almost spilled this tea all over me. The co-presenter said that he's fine to testify by telephone, if that's all right. Okay. All right. The Committee Government Affairs will reconvene. And I don't recall if I opened the hearing, so if not, I'm going to go ahead and open the hearing on AB 252, which revises provisions relating to governmental administration. Assemblyman Cohen, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Good morning, committee. Thank you for hearing Assembly Bill 252. I'm Leslie Cohen, representing Assembly District 29. Presenting with me is Dora Uwell-Martinez, with whom for several sessions I've worked on legislation that impacts Nevada's disability communities. Also joining us via Zoom is via phone, is Joel Snyder of the American Council of the Blind. AB 252 came about from a couple of different places. First, Ms. Uwell-Martinez asked if I'd carry a bill for museum accessibility, and then also during the interim, our colleague, Assemblymember Brown May, held several roundtables with disability communities regarding possible legislation for this session. And I was only able to attend 2 of those sessions, but museum accessibility was also raised as an issue during one of those roundtables. So originally, I thought this bill would be about audio descriptors, so that if a visually impaired person stood in front of a piece of art in a Nevada museum, they could hear detailed description of the art. And after conversations with Marvin Friedman, the administrator from the Nevada Division of Museums and History, who oversees the state's 7 museums, and Daphne De Leon, who's the administrative service officer from museums, and also Catherine Nielsen, who is Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. I think what we've come up with is a bill that has solid steps to make our museums more accessible, but it's also started an important conversation that can lead to Nevada's museums being more accessible for the visually impaired, as well as being more accessible for people with different types of disabilities in the state. So with that, I'm going to walk through the bill and give some more details about how we can make our museums more accessible for Nevadans with disabilities. And then I'll turn it over to Ms. Uwell-Martinez and Mr. Snyder for some remarks. So Section 1 creates the account for improving access to state museums for persons with disabilities in the State General Fund, which will be administered by the administrator. And the money in the account can only be used to improve access to our state museums for people with disabilities. As well, the administrator may accept gifts, grants, et cetera. And the key that I'd like to see with this is that the account won't revert back to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year, but will carry forward. Hopefully, in that way, if there are some big ticket items, the museums will be able to save up and utilize it for something big. Section 2 has to do with the Board of Museums and History, which consists of 12 members appointed by the governor. 5 of these members are general public members who have knowledge about museums. And then in section sub 2, one of the members, and here's what the bill is adding, that one of those members must be a person with a disability, including without limitation, a person who is blind or visually impaired. Section 3.2a adds a duty for the administrator relating to developing and maintaining an internet website related to museums and historical societies that is accessible for persons who are blind or visually impaired. And working on the bill, like I said, we spoke with Catherine Nielsen, who's Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Council of Developmental Disabilities. Director Nielsen and I discussed the possibility of making the website accessible to even more people with disabilities. For example, dyslexia is something that a website can help accommodate. So she informed me that there are specialists who work for the state that have technical knowledge to assist the Division of Museums with that. And I'd like to discuss that with Administrator Friedman and Executive Director Nielsen and possibly amend the bill to broaden that accessibility portion of the website. Section 3.2b adds a duty for the administrator to consult with organizations that are dedicated to the welfare of persons who are blind or visually impaired regarding accessibility. Section 420 requires the administrator to establish procedures that enable the accessibility of exhibits for persons who are blind or visually impaired. This can be providing audio guides, tactile displays, dedicated tours, et cetera. This is another place where a conceptual amendment may be coming, and that we may include asking the interim committee on seniors, vets, and adults with special needs to consider these issues over the interim and just take a deep dive into what more we can be doing to accommodate people with special needs in our museums, to have accessible, or for our museums to be more accessible so that everyone in Nevada can utilize and enjoy our museums. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Uel Martinez.
I think it's on. Oh, okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and the committee. My name is Dora Uel Martinez. I am here on behalf of my affiliate, Nevada Council of the Blind, and I hope Mr. Snyder is on the call with us because he's more of an expert. I'm obviously a mom who is blind. Oh my gosh, oops. And it's been really difficult when my kids were growing up to go to the museums and really can't see what's happening. So my children would end up showing me and describing it to me. So we kind of missed that. I mean, even though it was educational, but it's not the same as the counterparts what you may get when you go to the museum with your child. So I think this bill is a good start. It is very universal design. Thank you to Assemblywoman Awesome Cohen and terrific Director Nielsen, because we Nevadans, we want to include everybody, and this for going to the museum is is a valuable education for everyone, not just for us blind folks, but for everybody in the state. And not just for like ASL or dyslexic, but for other what do you call it? Like people from other countries to come in and be able to see what we have to offer. Thank you.
So do you want me to have Joel?
Yeah, I don't know.
And Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. If we can have Mr. Snyder just speak up. He's got about 2 minutes that he'd like to discuss.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Thank you. When you're ready, Mr. Snyder.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Snyder.
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name is Dr. Joel Snyder. I'm the president of Audio Description Associates, LLC, and I serve as the founder of and senior consultant to the Audio Description Project of the American Council of the Blind. Audio description is all about the use of the spoken word, words that are succinct, vivid, and imaginative, which convey the visual image that is not otherwise accessible to a significant segment of the population. In fact, new estimates by the American Foundation for the Blind put that number at over 32 million Americans who are blind or have difficulty seeing, even with correction. That's 8% of America's population, which amounts to about 250,000 Nevadans. Add to that their friends, their family, people on the autism spectrum, people with ADHD, language learners, anyone who can't access the visual. Maybe you're in the wrong room for television. I oftentimes say it's great as a sighted person. If you're making a sandwich in the kitchen, you don't miss a beat of what's on the television in the other room. And even sighted people see, but they don't always observe. Over the last 4 decades, I've provided audio description for thousands of live performing arts events, feature films, national television broadcasts, and dozens of museums. Audio description translates visual images to this sense form that is accessible for someone who can't see or can't see well. Using these audio description techniques for static images, exhibitions, museum docents with training in audio description find that they develop better use of language, more expressive, more vivid, and imaginative museum tours, greatly appreciated by all visitors. And recorded audio-described tours, combined with directional information, enable visitors who are blind to use a smartphone or a simple handheld audio player to tour at least a portion of the museum independently and with new access to the visual elements of an exhibition. In closing, I have a true story for you. A blind fellow was once visiting a museum with some friends, and a sighted person had the temerity to come up to him and ask, "Excuse me, but what are you doing in a museum? You can't see any of the exhibits." Well, his response, "I'm here for the same reason anyone goes to a museum. I want to learn, I want to know, and be a part of our culture." His inability to see shouldn't deny him access to our culture, and I believe it's the responsibility of all arts institutions, all public institutions, to be as inclusive as possible. There simply is no good reason why a person with a particular disability must also be culturally disadvantaged. I urge you to pass Assembly Bill 252. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29, we're ready for questions.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Thank you, Ms. Martinez, and thank you, Mr. Snyder, for your presentation. Members, any questions? Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, our colleague, Assemblywoman Awesome Cohen, as I was heard earlier, just to really bring up this inclusiveness into our museum, which is really awesome. I've heard Ms. Martinez and I've heard Dr. Schneider said several times about language access in terms of being able to have different ways of experiencing the museum. And I know the bill, when I was reading it, it require audio descriptive of different things in the museum. I'm wondering right now, in current process, if folks need an audio language guide, do they have the ability to ask for multiple languages if they don't speak English? And then if there currently is not, then are we planning to add other languages in this particular bill as well?
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Director Friedman is here and could answer that. I don't want to give an incorrect answer. I don't believe we do. Would you like him to come up now and answer that?
Yes, Director Friedman, thank you. I appreciate your participation.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. For the record, Myron Friedman, Administrator of the Division of Museums and History. My name is spelled MYRONFREEDMAN. In some cases, we do have Spanish language available, and we would aspire to have multiple languages available. This bill is focused on accessibility for those with disabilities. And I'm not saying these are two separate things, but I couldn't speak directly to whether, as we approach this, we're going to be able to package it all together and get all of this done, or if we want to look at the question of additional translations, just to be an ongoing part of our efforts to increase accessibility in the museum. So that's something we're always focused on. We don't always have the resources to pursue those things, but that's certainly a goal.
And if I may, Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29, I did speak to Executive Director Nielsen, and when we were talking about the websites and the capabilities that we already have within the state, there is some language capabilities for the website in the state. So at least hopefully that will be something that we'll be able to accomplish. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Quick follow-up, Chair. So I would encourage that if we are already looking at, descriptive languages for this particular purpose, that maybe if it's a cost issue that we can look into just for future and adding on to that, because if we have the visually impaired folks that only speak other languages other than English, as our diverse population grow, I would think this would be a natural next step. So I would encourage the bill sponsors and the folks to look into that as well. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to, I think, the awesome Assemblywoman. Oh, I want to get that right. So, I'm sorry, Assemblywoman Awesome Cohen. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm going to write it down. No, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for this. This is really important. I was going through the fiscal note, and I actually missed the first part of it because I didn't see where it continues. So you're looking at for a one-time appropriation for this, and I see the $25,000. Thank you, Assemblyman Carter, but it didn't say that it continues on. So help me understand that.
Myron Friedman, for the record, that is a one-time expenditure to develop the website. There will be costs further down the road once we complete our study with the Legislative Committee and with the Governor's Council. There's going to be recommendations. It's going to take time to go through that and develop that plan. That plan will have costs associated with it. The bill suggests or directs that we will fundraise for that, essentially, to cover that. I think there may be some costs in there that the state would like to see things implemented sooner than later, so we may be back for additional requests. But that one-time cost is to get the website, it's a fund to get the website constructed.
Thank you very much. I mean, we're policy, so for us is whether we think it's a good idea and want to pass that. I was just curious because I didn't see that. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Assemblyman Thomas.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. Great presentation, especially Mr. Snyder, when he visually had me going through his audio. His voice is great, so I'm hoping that he can do more in our museums to help us with the visually impaired see things. And that leads to my question. I would like to know exactly, if you could help me, visualize the future of this bill enacted for our blind and impaired citizens of the state. So when, like in New York, when you go to the Museum of Modern History, you can press a button, and that button will start giving you an audio of whatever you're standing in front of. Will that be something that our museums will enact through this bill?
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. One of the things that Administrator Friedman mentioned to me when we were talking about the bill is that our museums are a little different than, I think when most of us think of museums, we think of fine art museums, like you think of in New York.
And I apologize, your name for the record, please?
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. So we think of museums like fine art museums that you see in New York, and our state museums in Nevada aren't exactly like that. So I don't know that that's going to be what this ultimately is, because that's not exactly what our displays are. But I think, and that's kind of why we've got some solid steps now with the website, with starting the account, with getting this hopefully in front of seniors, vets, and adults with special needs, so that we can start things now, but also start having those conversations and moving toward more accessibility for the visually impaired community, but also other communities that have some accessibility needs in our state. So this is just the beginning, and then we'll continue to work on this with our museums and move forward and make our museums much more accessible for everyone in the state.
Vice Chair Duran.
Dr. Snyder, if I may address.
Go ahead, Mr. Snyder.
Hi, this is Dr. Snyder again, SNYDER. That's an excellent question about being able to press a button and hear background information about a particular exhibit. That is oftentimes what we've referred to as just a simple audio tour. Many museums have them, give you that background information. Perhaps it's even the director voicing the material. With an audio described tour, they can certainly, in fact, you really can do both in one. Have that information combined with a very succinct, a very vivid description of visual elements that can be helpful to sighted people as well as people who are blind or have low vision, or, as I mentioned, others with autism, ADHD, etc., people learning other languages. And in response to the other question as well, this can all be available in Spanish. It can be available in other languages as well. So perhaps one way to go is combining what you get in an audio tour, traditional audio tour, with an audio description, and you serve all populations with one tour. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Duran.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this bill. I think it's very important that all our populations and communities have access to the museums and everything else that we offer to that. But my question goes to the fact, is there other states that are working on this, there's like a model out there, especially with the modern technology always advancing? Is there something that we're going to look at?
Myron Friedman for the record. Yes, museums are utilizing wonderful technologies and techniques to get this implemented into their exhibits. I'm sure Dr. Snyder has worked with some of these museums and probably has some firsthand experience with just how far they've gone with technology to help with this. It will be a matter of study for our museums, and then it will be a matter of cost.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Members, any additional questions? No, I do have a quick question, Assemblywoman, and obviously this is not the Finance Committee, and so I don't mean to look really into that, but I do notice in Section 1 of the legislation, we are creating the account for improved access of state museums for persons with disabilities. And my understanding right now, based off of the language of the bill and based off there is no appropriation. So is the intent of the bill to allocate an appropriation this cycle, or is the intent just to create this account and leave it open, and then have them able to receive those gifts, donations available at that time?
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Right, it is to open the account and to get the gifts, grants, that type of thing. Certainly, if an appropriation were available, I'd take it, but we know what happens in ways. I didn't want to risk the chance of having any issues with the bill. And then like I said, I think this is the beginning of the conversation and getting work done. And then maybe in a couple of years, we can come back and see what we've accomplished and then get an appropriation and go from there. But there is some money out there for grants, that type of thing. So I think there's a way to get some things done in this situation, even if we're not asking for an appropriation at this time.
Thank you. And who would manage this account, or who's going to oversee? Okay, so it would be the administrator, and definitely would urge you, obviously upon passage of this legislation, that there was some conversation too with our federal delegation. I know that there are some federal funds at that, as well as Nevada Grant Lab, which hopefully is working as it is designed to assist our state agencies as well as local community organizations with getting some of those grants. Members, any additional questions? All right, thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite out anyone wishing to testify in support to AB 252.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Kira Capurro, KIERRACAPURRO, with McDonald Carano on behalf of the Nevada Blind Children's Foundation. Just last week, we had some of our teenagers come in from the foundation, and they were introduced to the Assembly, floor, and Senate. When they went to the Nevada State Museum, there were very few displays that they could really appreciate. Many of those who are determined blind do have a small amount of vision. When everything is behind glass, there's a glare on the glass and they can't see through it. Some of them have very thick glasses or use magnifying glasses in order to see, and that glare disrupts that. That's just for the bill's knowledge as they go further. Also, for our committee's knowledge, Nevada is one out of 7 states in the country without a school for the blind, putting us below the standard when serving the blind community in this state. There is so much else we could do, from keeping our sighted community informed on how we keep the visually impaired community safe when driving, to providing them more tools to improve their learning in schools. This is a needed step for Nevada, and I urge your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have 4 chairs here in Carson City, so if there's anybody else wishing to testify in support, please come to the table now, but go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ashley Cooper. I am the Manager of Advocacy and Government Affairs for Opportunity Village, and we're happy to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of AB 252? Seeing none here in Carson City or in Las Vegas, BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 252?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 252, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen, for the record. Stephen with a V. Cohen as in the esteemed and awesome presenter of this bill. I'll keep it short and sweet. Ditto. Thank you, and I yield.
BPS, next caller.
Caller, you're unmuted on our end. You may be unmuted on your end. Please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Janine Moores. That's Jeanine. Last name Moores. I am from the Northern Nevada chapter of the National Federation of the Blind. And I just wanted to register my support for AB 252 and just sort of echo what Ms. Uel Martinez and Dr. Snyder have said about this bill. I think it's very important that people who are blind, visually impaired, have access to the same information about exhibits and other services that museums have to offer as sighted, non-disabled individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to talk. My name is Lara Honorable Hughes. That is spelled Lara space ANONUEVO hyphen HUGHES. I am 9 years old. My mom is totally blind, and I love her. This would be really wonderful if there is accessible museums available around. I would like my mom to enjoy and understand what is being shown in the museum. She homeschools me, and visiting educational places like this would be a great way to add on my learning. I want her to know what is going on around her. This will also be a great way to bond with her. This will also help those kids who are younger than me that cannot read yet. Having accessible museums will help these younger kids understand too. Please support this bill. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate you being on the line with us today. And I think you have to be the youngest person to testify in government affairs this session. So congratulations. Thank you, VPS. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers on the line choosing to testify in support.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 252. Seeing none in Carson City and none in Las Vegas, BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 252?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 252, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral to AB 252 here in Carson City? Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Nielsen, Catherine Catherine, Nielsen, Nielsen. I am the Executive Director of the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'm going to try not to repeat anything and make it quick. So one crucial component of complying with this priority entails accessibility of electronic data and information, which meets the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, as well as the Rehab Act of 1975. This would not only include people with visual impairments, but many others with accessibility needs that will also benefit from the same changes. When a website is accessible, it can assist others, such as those with disabilities, such as dyslexia and other language access needs, which was mentioned earlier. The ADA is considered to be the first lawful affirmation of equal treatment of Americans with mental and physical disabilities. The ADA prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in employment, government services, public accommodations, commercial facilities, education, and other areas of society. In 1998, Congress amended the Rehab Act to require federal agencies to make their electronic and information technology accessible to people with disabilities, and this includes any federal agencies or agencies receiving federal funds when they develop, procure, maintain, or use electronic and information technology. Under Section 508 of the Rehab Act, agencies must give disabled employees and members of the public access to information comparable to the access available to others. If you look at our website, the NevadaDDCouncil.org, we have a toolbar which is considered an overlay for our website that helps increase accessibility to our website. Recite Me is just one example of this accessibility tool already available, and if you're addressing accessibility, we should address universal accessibility at the same time. Creating access for one group of individuals can help open doors to create access for all individuals. And by making the change to Nevada law, you will be increasing and strengthening the efforts of the ADA and the Rehab Act, which in turn would increase access to all Nevadans with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in neutral here in Carson City? I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone online wishing to testify in neutral to AB 252?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 252, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. And at this time, I'll invite the bill sponsor for any additional closing remarks.
Thank you. Once again, Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Thank you for hearing Assembly Bill 252. Thank you to Executive Director Nielsen and Administrator Administrator Friedman for coming in and sharing your information with us. It's kind of a joke, and I giggle and we smile when my very good friend, Miss Uel Martinez, talks about awesome Cohen. And I want to share how awesome Miss Martinez is. This is, I think, the 5th bill we've worked on together in the legislature, and most of the bills have been pretty serious. We worked on accessibility, voting accessibility for people who are disabled. We've worked on making sure that people who are disabled don't lose their children, don't have them taken by the state simply by the fact that they're disabled. And so this bill is a little lighter for us, but it's important. It's important for people who are disabled to have access to the services provided by the state. And these are museums that are our state-run museums, and it's very important for everyone in our state to be able to access these museums and participate in our community in Nevada. So once again, thank you for hearing the bill, and please let me know if you have any questions as we go on over the next few weeks. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 252. 1 minute recess. All right, at this time, the hardest working and awesome Committee on Government Affairs is going to go ahead and reconvene. Committee members, we do have 4 bills that we are going to go ahead and introduce today. We have BDR 23401, which revises provisions relating to public employees. We have BDR 2976, which revises provisions concerning the confidentiality of certain personal information of certain persons. We have BDR 231050, which revises provisions governing collective bargaining, and BDR 1053, which establishes provisions governing paid family leave for certain state employees. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to introduce the according BDRs. I have a motion from Assemblyman Nguyen, and I have the second from Assemblywoman Gonzalez. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, this motion does carry. Thank you. We will go ahead and continue on and open up the hearing on AB 314. You may begin when you're ready, Assemblyman Gallant and Assemblyman Taylor.
Good morning. I'm Danielle Gallant, representing Assembly District 23. It's a little different sitting here than there, so excuse me, this is my first time. First, I wanted to thank the fabulous Madam Chairwoman, who has fantastic vocabulary words, as well as giving me the opportunity to present today, as well as all of you distinguished committee members. I'm looking forward to presenting AB 314, which protects home-based businesses. So be kind. Again, it's my first time. Many of us introduce legislation that's personal to us in some way, and today I'm going to share a very personal story and why AB 314 is so important to me. My dad worked from home most of my life, and I can't help but think that it probably saved my life. In the 90s, bullying was not very prevalent or talked about, but it did happen, and it happened to me. So during junior high, I was bullied because my dad was Jewish and Brooklyn and brash. And growing up in a suburban California, he didn't really fit that mold. So they made fun of his nose, they made fun of my nose, they made fun of pretty much anything they could find. And the bullying became so bad that I had to switch schools. And it was a pretty lonely time for a teenager. But I can't help but think that if my dad was not home every day to pick me up from school, talk to me about the angst of teenage years, as well as the bullying that I was being subjected to, I fear that I wouldn't be here today presenting before you. I worry that if I had come home to an empty house alone with my own thoughts, that it would have gone down a very dark road, and something that we hear all too often in the news today. Yeah, I'm okay, sorry. But gratefully, I can say that I was not alone. I was reminded every day by my dad that I was loved and relevant and I had purpose. And his support helped me to build up the courage and the strength to work through this painful experience and grow into the woman I am today. And I've carried on that same tradition in our family as well. I work from home so that I can be home when the boys get home from school. They're 7 and 11 right now. I'm able to see their mood when they walk through the door, review their homework, make them a snack, and hear about their day. And as they get older, I know my presence is going to be even more important to help celebrate their wins and mend some broken hearts. The point is that I'll be home for them and be present for them when they need me most. So now I'm going to hand this over to my esteemed colleague, Assemblywoman Taylor, to discuss the growing prevalence of home-based businesses and why this is so important to furthering the diversity of our economic workforce and preserving the way of life that so many of us have become accustomed to.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Gallant. And thank you, Madam Chair, and the distinguished, I almost said extinguished members, distinguished members of the hardest working committee in the legislature, Assemblywoman Angie Taylor. My colleague from District 23's father was a bit of a pioneer in the 90s working from home because it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. Many of us do that. I work from home. The Small Business Administration estimates that about half of America's 30 million or so businesses are home-based. That's a lot. That's 15 million. COVID really changed that. And maybe the silver lining that emerged from the pandemic. As a result of COVID, the share of Americans working from home doubled between 2020 and almost doubled in 2020 to 42%. Since then, what started as necessity has turned out to be a strong preference for many Americans who prefer to live and work at home. Home-based businesses provide many economic and lifestyle advantages over traditional work. They can provide primary household income, supplemental income, backup income. That's the side hustle, the side gig, all those things that we know about, right? They can allow people to care for their children, and in my case, to care for my my aging mom who has dementia. It allows me to be home when I'm home. So for right now, I'm here, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Really, or elderly parents to avoid the cost and the hassle of the daily commute when you don't have to, and then really just to be there, reducing the burden and also reduces our carbon footprint. According to 2022 Institute for Justice survey, 1,902 home-based entrepreneurs, over half of home-based entrepreneurs are women. Let me say it again. Yeah, that's right. A larger share of that are among the U.S. Small businesses in the United States. And 31% of the respondents listed having a disability as one of the reasons for starting their business at home. Americans are finding that working from home balances responsibility that they have to their work and also to their families. As with anything, when it becomes more prevalent, government regulation seems to follow soon after. And in a state like Nevada, it can vary from across the board from county to county and municipality to municipality. AB 314, this bill, strives to be ahead of the curve, to streamline the guidelines and protect those who want to and need to work from home for their health or for the well-being of their family or even for their business needs and for their livelihood. Now, just before I go over the bill, a little bit of a personal story. I've actually been working from home since 2007. And it wasn't because my mom wasn't living with me then, but it was because of the business that I was in. We traveled a lot and we all had our businesses at home. I acquired that business, and so now it kind of becomes our home base for our business, which is really turned out to be a blessing because as my mom moved in with me and we began to see her mental decline, it was important for me to be able to be at home. And I'm able to be here now because I have a friend who goes over to my house every day and stays with my mom. And then she brings her laptop and she works from home at my home to be there with her. So there are three major components to this bill governing counties, cities, and towns, and the language across all of them is uniform. So when I take you through the bill, we're just going to we'll talk about Section 1, but it's the same throughout. Again, counties, cities, and then they're called town boards in the existing legislation. The language is uniform. The first part, Section 1.4, well, you see that in the digest. So let me just take you through it a little bit. You should have the same pages. I think it's page 2, Section 1. It talks about, again, this is for a board of county commissioners, cities, town boards, municipalities. It says that they shall not adopt or enforce ordinances that prohibits a home-based business from operating in an area that's zoned for residential. So if you can have your house there, you can have your home-based business there. And except as otherwise provided, but it does regulate the home business. There are some guardrails, as there should be. It regulates the hard business and the home business in a manner that's a little bit different from other business. It cannot regulate home business any differently than it regulates another business just because they're in a home. Those municipalities or county boards cannot impose a tax on a home-based business that is not already imposed on an equivalent business that's not home-based, and it may not adopt any ordinances that are not in alignment with other businesses. It cannot require home-based business to it does require a home-based business to comply with all the local zoning requirements. It regulates the use of vehicles and trailers and so on in those neighborhoods on the right of way. It also requires any kind of external modification made to a residential dwelling unit that has to be in conformity with that residential character and the architectural aesthetics of the neighborhood. It also prohibits a home-based business from conducting retail transactions at a structure that is not the main dwelling unit. So you can't just like pop up something in the parking lot at your apartment complex and then start doing your home-based business from there. It also subjects a home-based business to any relevant federal, state, or local laws that applies to that residential property. And any person who is adversely affected by the enforcement of it may file suit. There's a remedy for them. And nothing in this section, this is section 4, nothing in this section shall be construed to supersede or preempt the governing documents of a common interest community, your CC&Rs, your deed restrictions, any federal, state, or local governing transient lodging, none of it supersedes any of those regulations. And then use that just by definition. It also gives a definition of a home-based business to make that clear. It's a business that operates in whole or in part from a residential property in which not more than 2 employees or 2 independent contractors of the home-based business do not reside. And then also the use of the property as a home-based business is the secondary use. The primary use of this still needs to be your residential area. Those are really the high points of AB 314, and I turn it back over to my colleague, and then we prepare for questions.
Thank you. Danielle Galan, Assembly District 23. Just on a side note, I have sat down with stakeholders, and they've shared some concerns. We had a meeting the other day and discussed a friendly amendment. However, later in the evening, last night, I received an amendment, and their proposed changes defeated the intent of the bill. So it's not something that we've come to an agreement with yet. However, we're still, working and talking with stakeholders, and we're committed to find some common ground and continue to work together on this. So at this point, I will turn it over to you all and take any questions.
Thank you, members. Any questions? I see Assemblyman Koenig, Assemblyman Carter, and then Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Go ahead, Assemblyman Koenig.
There we go.
So a year ago today, I was a sitting county commissioner. And I looked through that and don't know that we were doing anything that you didn't like. So what I want to know is what specific problems are you trying to solve, and is there abuses and ordinances in other counties that I'm not aware of that are hindering home businesses, and what exact problems are you trying to, I mean, I can read what the bill says, but what specific problems are out there that you guys are trying to solve?
Yeah. So, Danielle Gallant for the record. Thank you. So, particularly in a place like Clark County, we're all sort of meshed together. So we've got Henderson, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and then we have Clark County on top of that. So there can be a lot of different rules that we all have to follow. So the idea here is to make sure that we streamline this and do protect home-based businesses. There has been some cases where some townships, not necessarily in Nevada, but there's been some cases in Florida where they tried to prohibit home-based businesses, which is actually where this bill came from. So, but as I've delved into this even more, there are some ordinances that are really just not even enforceable, particularly in Henderson. It says you can't have an employee come and work from your home, which I found kind of shocking as we're moving forward through this process. So obviously, we don't want to have 15 employees showing up to a house and working from home, but there's a lot of us that do need to work from home and do have one employee. I even wondered, what about the full-time nanny or the housekeeper? Is that now not allowed either? So I think this isn't just an effort to preempt any more and further regulations that would make this harder for home-based businesses. And to a certain degree, we're all kind of in the shadows. I mean, probably every single one of us work from home. I mean, even as assembly members, we're all working from home, particularly in Las Vegas, because we don't have offices there. Now we have our mailing address someplace else, but we're technically working from home. So what if somebody said, I'm so sorry, your campaign manager can't come over and help you work, or your comms director? So that would really pose a problem for all of us down the road.
So this is more just preventative than there's not a lot of abuses as far as you can tell right now. You're just preparing in case so it doesn't happen in the future.
Is that a question or a comment?
So
Or
it
Danielle,
doesn't
go on
happen
for
in
the
the
record.
future? That would be a question, yes.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, we've seen this as things become more prevalent. Government likes to regulate, so sometimes it's better to get ahead of it before it snowballs out of control.
Assemblyman Carter.
Thank you. Assemblyman Koenig kind of took part of mine away, but I want to follow up with that. You talk about that we don't want to create regulation, but isn't this bill just regulating from top? And I haven't heard anything that brings to light the need to bring the heavy hammer of the state down and control our locally elected county boards, town boards, the community-based organizations, the lowest level of government that knows what the community wants. I don't see that because most of everything you just listed was not home-based business. It was working from home. Two totally different things. But so on the piece that I'm curious about is if this is needed for publicly based community governments, why isn't it appropriate in community interest communities? So if you're not rich enough to live in an HOA, the state should say you can't take and regulate commerce within your own residential communities. Is that what it's saying?
Danielle Gallant for the record. No, that's not what it's saying. So this is giving a very broad ability for people to work from home and have home-based businesses. This does not supersede common interest communities. It doesn't supersede the restrictions, ordinances of the various local municipalities. Essentially, at the very crux of this just says that no governing body can actually prohibit it, but they can do regulations to minimize any impact that it would have on changing the landscape and the characteristics of a residential community.
So what you're saying is we need big regulation from the state because we can't trust our community-based electeds?
Danielle Gallant for the record. That's not what I was saying.
Thank you. Assemblyman Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the bill presentation. I wanted to dovetail off my colleague's comment about the difference between working from home and having a home-based business. I think there's a difference there, so I just wanted to get that clarified on the record. Me working from home for the state is not me having my own business, right? So there's just some nuance in language there, and I wanted that clarified, please, and thank you.
If I may, I'll start. I can hand it over. I think that the intention of this, and there is a very clear distinction, the intention of this is for home-based businesses. You can have your office in your home, because a lot of people do that more so now anyway, right? As I said in my comments, the intention of this is to not prohibit people from having a home-based business. And if I can say respond, that might be a little bit in response to Assemblyman Carter's question. The idea is to really have an overarching policy that says you can't prohibit people from having a home-based business. And if any local municipality, city council, township, county commission, governing board wants to put some regulation within that, they certainly can, because these are the broad guardrails. But it's really about the preventative piece, back to Assemblyman Koenig's question, the preventative piece saying you can't say someone can't have a home-based business with restrictions. That's the intention. So it isn't about people working from home, because some people have a little hybrid situation now with COVID and so on. This isn't intended for someone who does that at all. This is for someone who actually operates their business from their home. I operate my business from my home.
Sure. Thank you so much. Are there any examples recently of the state, counties, or municipalities telling people that they can't have home-operated businesses?
I'm sorry, I didn't identify myself. Angie Taylor, for the record, that last response. Sorry.
So Danielle Gallant for the record. So I haven't heard of any in Nevada. The concern was that we've seen this in Florida. And we just wanted to make sure that we would protect that here in Nevada, considering the fact that we do have a huge population of minorities, women that really do work from home and balance this work-family life. Most of my friends, right, we all work from home. And so I know has become more prevalent, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to fight for it down the road.
Chair, if that's okay. Just again, wanted to clarify the difference between working from home and having a home-based business, for the record, because those are two different things. And then my last question, under the definition of a home-based business, it talks about having one or two more employees. Looks like section 4, subsection 4, number A, it says no more than 2 employees or independent contractors. Is there a number on the independent contractors? And why is it 1 to 2 employees? And if there's any home-based businesses that have more than those, where do they fall? Thank you.
Okay, so that subsection 5A that talks about the definition of a home-based business is from a residential property. What that section's saying is no more than 2 employees or independent contractors. So 2 employees or 2 independent contractors of the home-based business can't reside in the home. And then not including an employee solely performs work remotely. So the idea is you don't want to have a bunch of employees living at the residence. Kind of like what Elon Musk is doing at Twitter right now, right? Didn't they just get him on that for having all the employees sleeping in the building? So I think that's, the idea is that making sure that those employees go to their respective homes and that they're not living in the property. And that would really, if you had employees living in the property, then that would sort of, negate the fact that part of the definition is that the primary use of that property would be residential, not home-based business. And in particular, I run my business from my house, but I choose to have like a P.O. box for a mailing address. So according to the state, it looks like I've got this P.O. box and of some kind of brick and mortar. And so we're almost like working in the shadows a little bit. And I know that there's a lot of people working from home-based businesses that are doing that as well. And it would just be better if we could all kind of come out of the shadows and be open.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Duran.
Thank you. And just, that raises concerns with me just now that you're saying contractors with that, because there's a lot of different contractors out there, as well as the hours of operation are, what are those going to be, because of the fact some people run businesses in the evening or 24 hours. Nevada is a 24-hour town, and I know Las Vegas is as well. And what kind of business are you trying to help, is what I'm trying to say. And do they protect local ordinances? And would the jurisdictions be able to regulate those?
Danielle Gallant for the record. So in terms of, it was independent contractors, so those that are 1099s. It's not talking about contractors. My husband's a general contractor, and if he ran his business out of our house, I probably would not be married to him today. So it's messy. So, and if you take a look in the subsection 2, like section 1 of 2, it's the same in 4 and 6. It talks about that the Board of County Commissioners or the townships or the various cities, they can adopt ordinances that require home-based businesses to comply with local zoning requirements. They can regulate the use of trailers, parking, storage, not having external modifications to the home. So those local ordinances can still create regulations in order to monitor and regulate so that it is not abused.
So for an example, and I just want to understand this, so you have 1099, so you have a lot of people that will, for example, I'm going to use a hairstylist or a nail technician. So who's going to monitor those people, because you're going to need chairs and you're going to need to have somewhere to do this? Is that not them, because they are independent contractors as well. So I'm trying to ask you what kind of businesses, because who's going to regulate those? Because you have to follow safety, you have to have OSHA, you have to have all that in there. So I'm trying to understand, is there a certain type of business you're trying to protect here?
So Danielle Gallant, for the record, I mean, just like Angie and I, like most likely, we don't have a lot of clients coming in and out of our house ever. This is something where like we've become very, very virtual in terms of how we operate our businesses. As for, hairstylists and nail salon, I honestly couldn't even imagine that they would want to have clients in and out of the house, but it's definitely a good question and something that we can explore further.
Yeah, and to clarify, that's already being done. That's already allowed and permitted in my conversations with local governments. So there are many people that operate those types of businesses out of their homes. But I do think this could expand that impact too. I do want to go over to Ms. Reeder, our policy analyst, as well. She was in contact with our legal regarding questions on the applicability of this bill to HOAs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jennifer Rudy, not your committee counsel, but repeating what Asher has just messaged to me is the definition of home-based business in the bill is in Section 1, subsection 5, and it depends on whether the property is residential property, since HOAs are entities that exist on properties that are zoned as residential, and there's no exclusion in the bill for residential properties in an HOA. The bill would require local governments to allow home-based businesses to be conducted in HOAs. There's nothing in the bill that would prohibit an HOA itself from prohibiting home-based businesses, though, as long as such a restriction isn't prohibited by the deed restrictions that created the HOA. Thank you.
So then to clarify, just for committee members, because I had the chance to look over that. So this means that you could still have an HOA create policies that prevent that. So to Assemblyman Carter's point, this would allow for one set of rules for HOAs and one set of rules for residential neighborhoods like mine, which is not a part of an HOA. Assemblyman Thomas.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the presentation. But I do have some follow-up questions that I've heard, discussed today. Just so that I understand this concept that you want to impose on our state as far as regulating home-based businesses. I have a tax company, and instead of having a brick and mortar building, I actually operate it from home. And I have a couple of employees there, but I have a steady flow of people coming to my home. All right? So does this, which could be annoying, as far as parking and all of that to the, community that, I live in, this would affect this bill right here that you're proposing for us to pass would affect that business, because now I have complaints coming all over from the residents in my community. So how does local government regulate something that the state has said they want to enact?
Angie Taylor, for the record. A bill like this, Assemblywoman Thomas, and thank you for the question, because the intention is not to impact a business such as that. And so I don't see where in this bill it will prohibit your business as you've described it from continuing on. It doesn't say that you can't have people come or anything. That was an example that Assemblywoman Gallant used, because in our businesses we typically don't. Yeah. But it doesn't. The bill doesn't prohibit that, so it should not have an impact on your business as described.
Okay, so when we as regulators tell the community that they can have this bill that you're proposing in a community that probably would be annoyed with all the foot traffic we're saying that our local government may choose to restrict my home-based business, because that's what you're saying in here, that local government may.
Assemblywoman Danielle Gallant, District 23. Currently, they can and do now. This bill doesn't prohibit them or give them license to. They're already doing it. So if one of your neighbors wanted to complain, they could complain to the city about it. There are multiple ordinances, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, that do regulate home-based businesses.
So just so that I understand then, why the bill?
To ensure that, Danielle Gallant for the record, sorry, to ensure that those local businesses can't take it away completely. Because at this point, they could prohibit all home-based businesses.
All right, so just so that I really, really, truly understand this, you're asking the government, the state government, to, in fact, negate local government then. That's what this bill is doing. You're saying that local government cannot regulate home-based businesses, but they already do.
Danielle Gallant for the record. This bill says local governments can't prohibit home-based businesses, but can regulate it within these parameters. Currently, right now, there's nothing that says that those local governments cannot prohibit home-based businesses. So it is a protection for somebody like you and me and Assemblywoman Taylor to ensure that we can continue to have our home-based businesses.
And I think to kind of clarify and build off of Assemblywoman Thomas's question too, I think that she's focusing too specifically on that zoning, right? I think that this would really expand what the current regulations are. So this would allow for mechanic shops to operate in homes. This would allow for these businesses to take place without any type of zoning as well. I know that similar policies exist in California, and I think this is a bigger conversation of whether or not this is something we want to do. You know, in areas like San Diego and Los Angeles, where you have a house and a salon and an office all in the same complex, whether or not that's the direction that the state wants to move in. Assemblywoman DeLong? At this time, members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman De Silva.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, distinguished colleagues, for your great presentation. I just had a quick question. No, Cecilia kind of stole the thunder from me. But I'm sorry, Assemblywoman.
Just as a reminder for decorum, thank you.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez, I'm so sorry. Page 3, I think it was section 21, that highlights some caps here on employees, independent contractors. My thing is this: in my part of Las Vegas, I know possibly Assemblywoman Duran and Assemblyman Carter may also be able to speak on this. I mean, there is an economy that's based from home. Several businesses that actually operate, I don't want to say extensive operations, but there is a significant amount of their household income comes from home-based operations. And I'm not talking about businesses that are like causing overly over disturbances, or there's a conflict there with health regulators, so on and so forth. Just to give an example, and this is why I want to kind of bring this back to sort of a familial sort of a concept, and hopefully you can consider maybe adding some language here that highlights families in this legislation. My Taylor runs an operation from home. About 4 people are involved. A mother, her sister, 2 children, and they operate a small Taylor operation out of their garage. Salons, a cosmetologist, multiple individuals, all from the same family. So these aren't like contractors or folks who are, serving as some sort of outside help. These are families. So I think that this, I think there's some merit in this idea, and that maybe there should be some language there that specifically looks at or maybe protects family-based operations that aren't causing any kind of disturbance. I mean, we're talking about a mechanic, operation out of your front yard, or something of that nature, but something that maybe you will highlight those sort of businesses, which are, I think, important to consider here in this sort of legislation. Thank you. And again, sorry, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, about the first name call out there. Still learning a little bit.
Okay, if I may, Madam Chair, Assemblywoman Angie Taylor for the record, and I'll respond to that as well. I think a couple of things to keep in mind is one of the things that you said that got my attention, as well as what about a family who runs a business together? It may be more than two people that live in the home, but they run the business together. So that's certainly something to consider, because that can happen. Certainly that can happen. And additionally, I will just remind all of us that businesses, if someone has a mechanics, which no one wants in their neighborhood, no one wants cars on blocks and all that stuff out front and whatever, no matter where you live. But if there's nothing in that neighborhood that prohibits that, they could already do it. So this doesn't say, oh, now I can go do it. They can already do it.
And Danielle Gallant for the record, and there actually are ordinances that prohibit people from working on their cars and in neighborhoods and various, and as you guys know, I'm in property management, so I've had plenty of tenants attempt to try to fix their car in the condominium parking lot or like in front of their houses, and we definitely get notices and address that immediately.
And I think a follow-up to that, if we could have legal kind of give us some clarification on whether or not that this would prevent that, because my understanding from conversations with local governments is that would still prevent those type of regulations. So, and that was my conversation directly from local governments, and so I just want a clarification from legal. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my takeaway on this bill is it's just preventing local governments from prohibiting home businesses. It's not changing the type of regulations they currently can do or can do in the future. Is that a correct assessment?
Assemblywoman Gallant for the record, yes, that is a correct assumption. And that is the intent of this bill. And yes, and if legal comes back with something different, then that would something that we would definitely want to amend in order to preserve the intent of this bill.
Thank you, members. Any additional questions? No, and I'm sure we'll have a response from legal by the time we come up for closing remarks. So I'll make sure that we add that in, but I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support for AB 314 up.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good to see you. For the record, Trey Abney with the Abney Talcon Group, here today representing the over 2,000 member businesses, Nevada member businesses of NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. And as far as we could tell, we have at least 150 home-based businesses in that membership, at least. And you're looking at the co-owner of a home-based business. I work out of my home, and also the business is based there. And yes, lobbying is a real business, sort of. So, the pandemic moved us forward probably 5 years when it comes to how we work and how we interact with each other. And modern society allows us this flexibility. And I want to thank my friends Assemblywoman Gallant and Assemblywoman Taylor for bringing this forward. And you heard Assemblywoman Taylor talk about having more family time, less driving, all the benefits that come from working at home and having a home-based business. And just to be clear, you still have to have all permits and fees. My business has a state business license through the Secretary of State's office, a City of Reno business license, county DBA license. So we have all of that that we have to have. And while I don't have a lot of visitors because my home-based beagle probably wouldn't appreciate that, it seems pretty simple to me. And I think the rough rule of thumb is this. If you can drive by or live next door and not notice anything different or amiss, then a fully permitted legal business should be able to operate there. And I see it this way, and I'll use Assemblywoman Thomas's example as somebody preparing taxes in their home, and let's say they have 5 folks, come in and out throughout the day, customers. If your neighbor can have 5 folks come in and out throughout the day because their teenage son is doing an Xbox tourney, right? Then your business, if you're not bothering them, you're not bothering your neighbors any more than that neighbor is having folks come out over, and visit the home. So it seems to me as long as you are treated the same, you are allowed to have a home-based business, and you can still have all the regulations with cars in your yard or cars parked all over the street and all over Creation. But as long as your neighbor is allowed to have X amount of cars or X amount of people come in, you should be allowed that too, as long as your business is a legally permitted business. And I'll just close, home-based businesses can become larger businesses and employ more people. So we do support anything that strengthens and that supports small business in the state of Nevada. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your time.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, Policy Analyst for the Vegas Chamber. We appreciate the intent of the bill sponsors to support small and micro home-based businesses and to help those small businesses compete on a more even regulatory field. And as such, the Vegas Chamber is in support of AB 341. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support for AB 314 here in Carson City? I don't see any, and I see none in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of AB 314?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 314, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair Torres and committee. My name is Jim DeGraffenreid, DeGraffenreid, and I'm Nevada's Republican National Committeeman representing the Nevada Republican Party. We are here today in support of AB 314 and thank the bipartisan sponsors for bringing forward this common sense legislation that will prevent local governments from unreasonably banning all home businesses, enabling Nevadans throughout our state to own their own business and contribute to the Nevada economy. We appreciate your time hearing this bill today. Small businesses are the backbone of the Nevada and U.S. economies, making up over 99% of all businesses in the U.S. 70% of these businesses are operated by individuals, and a significant number are operated from home. By prohibiting unreasonable laws prohibiting the operation of all home businesses, AB 314 lowers barriers to entry for new business owners and allows more Nevadans to own their own business. Under this bill, local governments would not be able to ban home businesses across the board, but would still be empowered to regulate as necessary to maintain the character of their residential neighborhoods. As an insurance professional, I work with many home-based business owners, and their ability to operate from home without the added expense of separate offices is a key part of their success. AB 314 enables a level playing field by prohibiting discriminatory regulation against home-based businesses, but it also protects residential neighborhoods by preventing the operation of businesses that are incompatible with residential use due to parking and noise issues. And the bill also respects HOA requirements as well as other laws governing residential uses of property. The bill sponsors have done an excellent job of crafting thoughtful legislation that balances the interests of home-based business owners with the interests of other neighborhood residents. Thank you again for hearing this bill today. We urge your support for this bipartisan, common sense legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify in support this time.
Is there anyone else? Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to AB 314 here in Carson City? When you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Mike Cathcart representing the City of Henderson. The City of Henderson is opposed to AB 314 on the premise that we believe this is a local government issue and should continue to be handled at the local government. The city currently has the right balance of zoning regulations in place for home-based businesses that balances the desire of some to start a business from home and also the desire of their neighbors to enjoy a quiet residential area. Section 4 of the bill both gives the city authority we already have, and we believe we have that authority, and it possibly restricts us from being responsive to the community in a timely manner. The city currently does prohibit some certain business types in neighborhoods, such as automotive repair, and there's about 8 business types that we prohibit. But we have, over the past year, we've issued 482 home-based business, home occupation permits. So it's something that we have a path for now. We do have some rules and regulations around home occupation permits. You're limited to 3 customers an hour, to reduce traffic if you are seeing customers in your home. An example of that would be someone giving music lessons from their home. They're more than, we would approve that as a home occupation. As long as they're not seeing more than 3 new students an hour, they would be fine. It was brought up about the City of Henderson in regard to employees reporting to a home-based business. What our code says is that you can't be employed at that residence if you don't live there. If you're not the resident, you can't report to work there. And the reason for that is we get lots of complaints. We have people that wish to run retail locations out of a home that creates lots of traffic. We would not want employees reporting to a home to help sell goods and services from that home that generates lots of traffic. So really, at the end of the day, we're opposed to 314 because we really see this as a limitation on our authority to regulate home-based businesses. And our big concern is we leave here and we have 18 months before the legislature comes back. The business community changes a lot. I've been dealing with business licensing for the last 12 years. And people are innovative. People come in and approach us about different business types every day. And we work with them to get licensed, either as a home-based or in a commercial location. But the business community changes quickly. And we need to be able to be nimble. We need to be able to respond to the changing desires of the business community to do different types of things from a home-based perspective, but also to be able to protect the neighborhoods as well, to maintain people's ability to enjoy their home and not have, lots of traffic and a business community in their neighborhood. So for those reasons, City of Henderson, we're currently opposed to AB 314. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Jennifer Berthume, Government Affairs Manager at the Nevada Association of Counties, or NACO. On behalf of our NACO members, we are testifying in opposition today on AB 314 as drafted. We do want to thank the bill sponsor for her willingness to meet with local governments to share our concerns and come to an agreement on this bill. We look forward to continuing that dialogue and hopefully be able to support an amended version of this bill. Our membership is concerned about the local preemption of existing ordinances and regulations in AB 314. Again, we look forward to continuing our work with the sponsor on this proposed legislation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, committee. My name is Ashley Garza Kennedy, representing Clark County. I want to first, here in opposition to AB 314, but I want to first thank the Assemblywoman for meeting with local governments. As she mentioned, we were working on a conceptual amendment that we couldn't get to consensus before this hearing, but I thank her for her willingness. I want to begin by saying that Clark County currently does allow home-based businesses, and we currently have 11,000 of them. We do not tax these businesses any differently than any type of business in our community. However, we have a responsibility to manage local zoning requirements and protect residential communities. We are committed to developing and maintaining communities for the comfort of and enjoyment of all of our residents. Residential communities are not zoned for commercial use, and they should not be. Thus, we do currently have prohibitions on the types of businesses that may operate from a home, such as businesses regarding vehicle repairs, bodywork, paint, or any businesses involving the firearms, explosive, any other dangerous materials, or any businesses that offer any type of medical service that you would see in a hospital or a clinic. We do not allow home-based businesses to have employees work from their home because this opens the door to other occupational safety concerns. We also do not generally allow customers to visit home-based businesses with some exceptions, such as for somebody who's providing cosmetology services and they are serving a customer at a time. Again, we support home-based businesses and recognize that they are a pathway to grow entrepreneurship, and our local ordinances allow these businesses to exist. However, we must balance the needs of small businesses while also preserving communities that are zoned for residential use. Our opposition to the bill as written removes all of our local authority to regulate home-based businesses in a manner that we feel strongly is of local concern. I appreciate the sponsor for working with us, and we will continue to do so as we move through the process. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and committee members. For the record, my name is Steve Walker, a home-based business owner representing Story County. Story County's opposition to AB 314 is introduced. We feel it has an element of a solution looking for a problem. We are a stakeholder in the negotiations and will continue to work with the Assemblywoman Gallant. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition to AB 314 here in Carson City? I see none, and I see none in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to AB 314?
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 314, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to AB 314 here in Carson City? Seeing none. BPS is, and I see none in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral to AB 314?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 314, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Wes Razar with Americans for Prosperity. On behalf of thousands of AFP activists, we are neutral on AB 314, which seeks to empower entrepreneurs starting the pursuit of their American dream from their home. I do want to thank Assemblywoman Gallant and Taylor for definitely presenting this bill. What they've done is highlighted a serious problem where Nevadans have lost complete trust in local municipalities as they continuously infringe on individual rights in their pursuit of happiness. Also, as they stated, before the pandemic, the Small Business Administration has estimated that about half of all small businesses are home-based. That number is even higher today. We're talking about Amazon, Hobby Lobby, Microsoft, Google, Dell. I mean, these amazing companies that have all started in the garage. This is what this bill is seeking to empower. And although it's been well-intended, we do think that there are some stipulations within this bill that could be a lot better. Two recommendations for us with American for Prosperity is subsection 1, subsection 5A, and section 1, subsection 1A. But 5A, I think Assemblyman Ruben Silva hit it on the nail. Our concerns was, you know, you have some families who employ their entire families, close friends. That section there would restrict them, and that would basically hinder the ability for individuals to get their American dream started. So we suggest that that clause is removed altogether. In terms of retail transactions, you know, that's a big problem. It seems like government can say you can't use a garage or a shed, which is, you know, basically silly and sad. But we do believe if we were to remove that, then that would empower home-based businesses to succeed. And make no mistake, Clark County is not the best in empowering individuals. There's current litigations and lawsuits that are addressing some of the ordinances that are egregious. So for us, we look at it and say, this is a great bill in the right direction. We believe, as the declaration says, everybody has an inalienable right to pursue their American dream, and that the role of government is to empower them. And we look forward to working with the bill sponsors to ensure that we get this bill in the right direction with the right stipulations to empower every single family, especially those young individuals who are out there wanting to attain their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. And if the committee secretary could put that under opposition, because there were recommended amendments under committee rules, that is opposition, but I know that you can definitely reach out to the bill sponsor, and I know that they can look forward to working with you on those things. Is there anyone else wishing to testify neutral to AB 314?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. I'll invite the bill sponsors for any closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assemblywoman Angie Taylor for the record. And thank you to the committee for the questions, for the feedback, and for your time and attention. the intent on this bill is to keep the door open for small businesses and to make sure it continues to stay open for the many thousands and growing numbers of small businesses in all of our constituencies across the state. We recognize that people are choosing, making the choice to stay home, to work from home, to have a home-based business for their finances, for their family, for the flexibility, and we want to continue to support that. The words of concern or opposition, I think, notes were well taken, and I look forward to continuing the work as we move forward.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Danielle Gallant, District 23. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for hearing this bill and giving us this opportunity. It's always exciting when you get to have bipartisan legislation, and I do hope that we can all consider supporting this bill for not only just the economic diversity and workforce that we would like to see here in Nevada, but also to help balance work and family. And some of my background in mental health definitely comes to it. And I know there's a lot of parents out there that really would like to be able to be home with their teenage kids when things are most tenable at that time. So I do believe that this bill is going to really assist with that. I do also look forward to working with stakeholders so that we can find the right balance for Nevadans. And because, 5 minds are better than one, right? Yeah. So thank you again, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We did get a response from legal regarding the question whether this would still apply to mechanics. And so kind of the concise answer, although I'm happy to send this out to the bill sponsors as well so that they can have this clarification. But the language does allow local governments to enact ordinances that regulate the parking of vehicles or machinery at a home-based business or that are visible from the street or another property. So despite the general rule in the bill that local governments cannot prohibit home-based businesses or treat them differently from other businesses, this does create a specific rule that local governments can still make specific rules relating to parking and visibility of vehicles and machinery at home-based businesses if they are visible. Thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and close the hearing on AB 314. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. So I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in public comment. I don't see anyone here in Carson City or anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
If you'd like to provide public comment, please press star 9 at this time to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to committee, we will be meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. in room 4100. We'll be going over 2 bills, AB 214 and AB 310. At this time, the meeting is adjourned.